and welcome to another episode of the Horse Heresy Accountability Buddies. We're going to start off with hobby progress. We're going to do a live product review for everyone that Duncan requested midweek. We're going to go through a little bit of hobby information, and then we're going to do Dark Angels rules discussion. Tonight, my name is John, and I'm joined by
Jamie.
We boned it up again, but we're good. I'm Duncan. And so that everyone knows, I did not actually request this review. I just requested that Dan not do it in our chat because I thought that was even worse. So now everybody gets to hear how wonderful this product is that John has purchased.
Keep going. We got another
I'm Jack.
And I'm Lucas.
Yeah. So, hobby-wise this week, I think last week I said I got all of the contrast, scale 75 contrast colors down on the Octaris campaign terrain. So this week I sealed it all and started doing my oil washes. I've gotten everything but 3 pieces of wall done that way. And then last night I started building some of the ash wastes terrain. I've built 1 hab and 1 double wide hab, and then cleaned those up so that they can accept some of the Mechanicus walkways around them to make a super building. And I've got some ideas for that I've kind of stolen off of Instagram, and I'll be working with that stuff. And then purchases wise, I found some cool new tools I wanted off of AliExpress. So I found some sponges for different weathering shapes, and then I found some cheaper clippers and things like that I can use to make terrain and stuff with. And I'll do little reviews of those when everything comes in for that stuff. So that's all from me. I'm going to pass it off to Jamie.
So I have had a interesting, let's say, week and a half. I really haven't gotten a whole lot of hobby done because I had twins' birthday. I've had a soccer tournament for my 10-year-old. My wife wrecked her minivan, so we were down to 1 car. And then the flu has been running throughout the house. So what have I gotten done? I've actually, because of my hobby pile of shame that literally takes up almost the entire rack behind me, which y'all can't see, I've been cataloging and organizing what all I have, because like I literally could, if I built it all, would probably be like 20,000 plus points of Dark Angel stuff. That's a little bit excessive even by my standards. So I'm trying to figure out what I can break off into stuff for, say, like another Legion, like Alpha Legion I'm thinking about doing, or and also some stuff that I could potentially donate for Toys for Tots for like next year's stuff that we're going to do. So I know it doesn't seem like a whole lot of hobby progress, but like the amount of crap that I have is excessive, and I have to go through and make notes of everything because of how much. So that's me.
I'll go. I changed brakes on vehicle. Somehow the Miss managed to crack her rotor on her car. A little Toyota. Not sure how. So that turned into a combi of errors. And that was basically all of my hobby time this week, outside of work and putting a little bit gold on Locataris and making fun of Duncan. Speaking of Duncan, what have you done?
Oh, let's see here. I have had the chance to mostly finish my chieftains because I've been slacking on actually doing a whole bunch of stuff. I've got 9.5 of them complete, and other than bases, I still got to do the banner guy's banner in his arm. And then I played a game against Nick from Indiana on Saturday with my Sons of Horus using my chieftains. Spoilers, they did really, really well. And I discovered that I need to make a slight change to the war gear on how I have them and my Reaver set up, because I think my 3,000 point list, I'm going to drop 3 of the jump Reavers that I have in that list out, and I'm going to use those 3 dudes to the points from those 3 guys to add 1 more Thunderhammer to the list, and I think it's 8 more Power Fists or 6 more Power Fists, one of the 2. I can't remember which. But that's all I did this week. And I made fun of Jack for being Jack because and that's what he deserves.
We all do that. I mean, that's nothing out of the norm. I mean, that's normal hobby progress right there.
That is literally the great American pastime.
It is. It truly is. So Jack, you said that she popped her rotor or broke her rotor in half?
Cracked.
Cracked the rotor
Not in half. There was cracks going all the way around it. Not like one big one, but a bunch of little ones. And I've never seen a rotor do that before.
So this is on the car that you were driving for a couple of years before you gave it to her, right?
Well, it was
So
her
that's a
car
yes.
that we bought for
And
her.
and so
And
that's
then
the one
I
you drove
drove
for
it
2
for a little
years.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then just recently gave to her to drive on a regular basis?
2 years ago.
Okay. So what you're saying is it's actually your fault because you haven't changed it since you did it, and you probably had that problem the whole time, right?
No. What
Okay,
I'm
good
saying
enough for me.
is,
Lucas, what'd you do this week?
I hate
Okay,
myself.
cool. So I really have been working on my 3D printer, just trying to get it tuned in. We talked about it last week. I bought a Elegoo Saturn 8K on the Amazon sale that they had. And so those prints are looking really good. I've been printing up some stuff for Dark Angels, despite having bins and bins of stuff new in the box for them. So I'm trying to, be able to unlock more options because a lot of the stuff that I have for Dark Angels that I had built for 1.0 is not super great in 2.0. I had a lot of armored lists.
What a shock! What a shock!
That are not like super great. So, and then I also was working a little bit on Night Lords. I started my Praetor that's based on Eidolon. So I was taking some of the detail off of Eidolon in order to replace it with some more Night Lords stuff. I think that's it. That's everybody, right?
Everybody who's present.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Cool.
Oh, so
Hey.
moving on to releases this week, we have
One thing real quick, John. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is the product you're going to review?
No.
I don't want to spoil it, but I want to know what it is because I actually saw something really cool the other day, and it's like a little airbrush that you put a marker in.
Yeah, I've seen those before.
This is nowhere near that
pretty
cool.
advanced. Yeah, this
Okay.
is very tactical, 40K related. Goes pretty much everywhere. It's something you need really for your hobby area.
Did you get the alternate color too?
Yes, I did. I got the 40K blue Aquila socks. I just noticed on the back of the package it says they're for UK size 6 to 11.
So it's like for a hobbit foot.
Yeah.
So don't you wear like a size 15?
Yes, I do. This is US sizes. It's actually a size smaller. So there's this thing is actually only the size of 3 of my toes. There's no way I could actually put this on for you, Duncan. I'm sorry. I was gonna wear it for you on camera, but I'm gonna
I
hurt
hate you
myself.
so very much.
I was gonna hurt myself. I'm trying to actually put that on.
That's awesome. That's just you just got to put the metal dreadnought in it and swing it around at the event.
Yeah, it's more for beating at this point, I guess.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can use it that way, or
You could say it's technically all GW stuff when you go to an event.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is the sock that you put the old metal dreadnought in when you use it as a club to beat someone with.
Yeah, it's a dread sock.
Yeah,
literally.
precisely.
Yeah, it says copyright Games Workshop on the bottom, so that way they
Of course it
know
does.
it's correct. Yeah. So-
Those socks would be like halfies on me, like seriously, because like I don't have as big feet as John, but I still wear a size 13 US, so that's like
yeah,
I mean-
size 6 to 11.
UK, which is
UK.
it's literally a size smaller. It's like a size.
So
It's for children.
Yeah.
yeah, send that to
Yeah.
Jack because he has tiny feet because he's a man child.
It says on the website for adults, but that's apparently not for Americans. So
Sorry, this is
Going-
like
going
we're already
over-
off the rails.
Yeah, we're
This is what happens when multiple
British
owners of
podcaster with the smallest feet.
That's Jack.
That's Jackie.
No, the British podcaster with the smallest feet and send them to him.
That would be Jack saying, hello, Gabba.
so going on to releases this week. The Demos Predator came out with the last cannon, the conversion beamer, and the vibro cannon. That was dropped this week, and then finally today, officially, we got the announcement that next week, 1 week into November, we will be getting
The
the
pre-order.
pre-orders. Not even the release, but the pre-orders for Liber Imperialis and the Assassins, and the Necromunda. We're getting all the different types of Prometheum tanks.
You're also getting made to print Solar Ox stuff too. It looked like.
Yeah, the made-to-print gunners for turrets, which is nice because that's been out of print for almost 5 years. You're getting the character, you're getting the rapier cannons, and then they're bringing back, I think it was the Night Lord torsos and some other torsos. So
Iron Hand.
Iron Hand.
Yeah.
as well, yeah. So
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
some nice stuff that's brought back for made-to-print, as well as finally getting that Imperialis book 2 weeks into November.
Interesting.
So that's pretty much all the releases. They did say in that article, they actually jumped ahead this
Oh.
time and said that the North America physical book was going to be slowed down by an indeterminate amount of time. So it'll be a question of whether or not the digital release for North America is slowed down as well. But I don't see a reason to do that.
I think
Other than normal
you
GW
did miss
practices.
something.
Oh, go ahead.
You missed the Night Lord's new heads.
Do we? Yes, the buzzard beak / or rat heads.
Yeah, I think it's closer to a rat's head than a buzzard's head.
I don't hate them, but they're not the best.
Yeah, they look goofy inside.
The headsman, that was the huntsman headsman, the helmet is actually not, even though it's got bat wings on it. Actually, I didn't think it was that bad. I know John, I think it was you were saying you liked the naked head sculpt that looked pretty good.
Yeah.
But the general rank and file helmets, like I have a Night Lord army, played them for just as long as I've had my Dark Angels. I absolutely hate it. Like front on, it looks okay. It looks kind of like some of the Mark III, Mark IV helmets they've had in the past, like the styling of it's hard to describe it, kind of a skull face. But then when you get because they're Mark VI and you look at the profile of it, it's like a skull of a rat head is the best way to describe it, I guess.
Yeah, it does look pretty long in the snout.
Yeah, it does not look good in the profile view at all.
Maybe they'll look better once we get them like in people's hands and stuff and don't just see like them by themselves, but
Maybe, yeah.
Because sometimes that happens with helmets.
I
So
will
we'll
say
see.
this: there are some bonuses to this head that I actually do like, to the rank and file helmets, and those are that it's not the Space Wolf, and that's the only positive thing I have to say about it.
Do you put these second to last, right above the Space Wolf heads?
No,
Okay. So you put them. Do you put these last and Space Wolf heads in a category all their own?
yeah, Space Wolf has plastic that you should never purchase.
Yeah, they're pretty rough.
Well, like I said, I don't hate them, but I'm not going to rush out and buy them either.
No, I'm not. I'd actually put like the older style heads on them.
Right. I got plenty of Terror Squad heads.
Yeah, exactly. I'd use Terror Squad heads or take heads off of the jumpy guys, the
Night Raptors.
Night Raptors. Yeah.
Or even like the Primaris Reaver heads look pretty good on on Night Lords too.
I've used the helmetless Primaris Reaver head for Chaplain I did a long time ago. So
All right, but yeah, I think that's it for the release.
yeah, I think that's actually all the releases, and then that's all of our product reviews and hobby progress, I guess.
Awesome.
Lucas will go ahead and Jack, what do you got?
I like to point out that we got the Liber Imperialis before November. The
We got
announcement of
The announcement that it's going to be like 2 weeks in though when it actually, and like North America could be like January the way that they kind of brought it up. So
Yeah,
Did they say they were going to delay the digital as well?
they put it in the same sentence and then put 2 asterisks on it, and then at the end of when you scroll down to the asterisks, it says specifically that physical release will be delayed. It doesn't say that the digital isn't, so that's what's kind of making people wonder.
Okay, so it's about as clear as the rules writing.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Same intern.
So we're ready to start talking about the best Legion, first Legion, Dark Angels.
I think you
Yes.
said first Legion, yeah.
Okay. So, Jamie, you also play Dark Angels, right?
Correct.
How many games of 2.0 have you gotten with the Dark Angels so far?
2. I have not been able to play a whole lot because I'm in the middle of my kids' soccer season, so my
Fair.
free time is very limited.
That's fair. I haven't been able to play as much either. I have a newborn, so I understand.
Yep.
But I played a couple games. I probably played with Dark Angels. I probably played a dozen games of 2.0. So I've tried them with a couple different builds as well. So I kind of have a good idea of what works and what doesn't. So we can kind of double team the going through all the rules. So we'll start with the Dark Angels Legiones Astartes special rule. It's called the Hexagrammaton. And like we talked about last week, the Hexagrammaton is the 6 wings of the Dark Angels. Any unit composed entirely of models with Legiones Astartes Dark Angels must select a Hexagrammaton unit subtype during the army creation process. And then there are a couple units that are locked to picking a specific Hexagrammaton subtype, like the Dreadwing, the Dreadwing Interrupters, the Deathwing Companions, and so on. But other than that, they also have a special console type called the Paladin of the Hecatonistica. Say that 5 times fast. They have a couple of special war gear options, all of which are pretty good, and they have a warlord traits. Strangely, got only 2 warlord traits. Everybody else got 3. They can't complain because we got 6 rights of war, but just a little strange. They wrote 3 for everybody else. So there are 6 hexagrammaton unit subtypes. Basically, the general gist of how you select one. If you have a independent character, like if you have 2 models in the same unit with 2 different hexagrammaton unit subtypes, you must select which hexagrammaton unit subtype you are at the beginning of the turn. So you can't like pick whichever one you want, whenever you want. You can change it during the game, but you can't just like do it, in the assault phase. I want to be the one that gives me +1 to hit with swords, and I want to be the one that gives me +1 to hit with shooting in the shooting phase, right? So that's a little bit of a limitation. The biggest limitation with the hexagrammaton unit subtype that I found is that dedicated transports must be the same hexagrammaton unit subtype as the unit they are transporting. This is bad because many of them do not really do well with vehicles. Like the Stormwing one, unless you have like a Rhino with a combi bolter on it, which we'll go over all of them in just a second, you can't really even use it. So I've been running like a Deathwing army, and the Deathwing one for vehicles gives me +1 to ram, and it's not really so. But basically, I won't read all of it. I won't just turn into Man Reed's book for all the unit rules. I'll just go over them super quick. The Stormwing one gives them +1 to hit with a list of weapons: bolters, combi bolters, or bolt pistols. So it's kind of like the Imperial Fists trait, but a much toned down version because it's only 3 weapons that they gain access. It's still pretty good on like a tactical squad. Obviously, hitting on 2s doesn't suck. Also, I think we as a community have decided that +1 to hit does confer to snapshots as well. That +1 ballistic skill doesn't, but +1 to hit does. So that would make them snapping on 5s, stuff like that. Then there's the Deathwing unit subtype. It gives them +1 to hit in assault when they are using basically any sword. I won't read all the list of swords, but we'll just say it's basically any sword.
And like just with the Dark Angels, they have like a lot of different swords as options too.
Right.
So
they have 2 special swords that are both quite good.
Yeah.
And then it gives you, if you're a vehicle, it gives you +1 strength to ramming, which kind of sucks because when you ram, you can't shoot and you can't get out. So that's not that great. Then you have the Dreadwing unit subtype, which if you're shooting at them with flame, plasma, volkite, or phosphex weapons, you reduce the strength of those attacks by 1, and also poison by 1. Like if it's poison 4, it goes to poison 5. That one's pretty good, especially like on a Dreadnought. That one's pretty cool because like obviously plasma is pretty good against Dreadnoughts, but that one's pretty good. Ironwing unit subtype, you may reroll failed to hit rolls of 1 when targeting an enemy vehicle. That one's pretty solid, although a lot of vehicles already have twin-linked weapons, so it's kind of got some overlap there. And then it also makes, if you are a vehicle, it makes you snap shoot at BS2, which is probably the best part of it, because then you can like, move your full distance, you shoot your 1 weapon at full ballistic skill, and then snap shoot all your others on 5s. And since I have twin linked weapons, 5s re-rolling isn't too bad. Firewing unit subtype is you get +1 to wound when attacking a unit that contains an independent character. So that one's pretty solid. An enemy army must contain a unit that has an independent character in it. 99% of armies must contain that unit. So you at least get it against 1 unit, and usually you want to kill that unit anyway because it's got the enemy warlord in it. 1, which is anything that's not a vehicle, adds +1 when you run, like adds +1 to the unit's run move. Models with a cavalry type may re-roll shrouded damage mitigation. That's not that good because half of the cavalry models in the list already re-rolled shrouded saves. And models with the vehicle type add +2 inches to their movement speed when moving at cruising speed. Move a little bit faster and still remain combat effective. They have an advanced reaction. It's called the Angels of Death. Basically, when you're charged, you can take a leadership test. And if you pass that leadership test, you gain Fearless and Fear 2. If you fail the leadership test, you gain Stubborn and Fear 1. It's kind of dubious value because if you're getting charged, a lot of times you either know you're going to win, or there's a lot of situations where you almost want to lose. Like obviously there's going to be some situations where like you want your tactical squad to hold for an objective or something like that. But a lot of times you're going to want to lose so that you can shoot the enemy assault unit in your turn.
Yeah.
Like if you could do this when you charged and make your guys fearless, that would be much better, but you can't. So that's not a great advanced reaction, but it's not completely. They got some warlord traits. They're pretty complicated. Do we want to go over the warlord traits?
Sure.
Okay. So basically the first one's called Marshal of the Crown. It gives you a bonus based on what hexagrammaton subtype you and your guys are. So if you have like Deathwing, for example, any other models in your army that can draw line of sight to your warlord that also have Deathwing gain +1 leadership. That's pretty solid, especially if you have kind of a themed army that goes off of one wing type, which isn't the strongest way to play Dark Angels. The strongest way to play Dark Angels is kind of to have all the different all the different wings, but that's one very difficult to keep track of, and it's confusing to the opponent. So it's kind of easier if you're just like, okay, all my guys have this one bonus. You also get a different reaction based on which wing you're part of. Like if you're in the Storm Wing, you get a shooting phase reaction. Raven Wing gets a movement phase, whatever. And then there's Seneschal of the Keys. Warlord with this trait may select one faction, any faction in the game. So that would be Mechanicum. It lists Mechanicum, Dark Mechanicum, Demons of the Ruinstorm, Legiones Astartes X, etc. Once per battle, you can declare at the start of any turn that turn is decisive. And during the decisive turn, the warlord and all models that a unit he has joined increase their weapon skill or ballistic skill by 1 when making attacks against a unit that includes at least one model from the chosen faction. In addition, they get an assault phase reaction. So that one's pretty solid because the Dark Angels already have some pretty crazy weapon skill based shenanigans. They have a unit which Sergeant is weapon skill 6 base. So if you give him this, he goes to weapon skill 7. He hits a Praetor on a 3, which spoiler then goes to a 2 because of his +1 to hit with a sword. So there's a lot of shenanigans you can do with that. So then we have 6 Rights of War. They have the most Rights of War of any legion. So
just before we go deeper, like Dark Angels are like one of the most complicated legions to play because you have to, it's like Inception where you have layers upon layers upon layers that you have to keep track of and maintain, especially if you're playing multiple wings in one army. So
precisely. And like one of the most popular units, like the Inner Circle Knight Cenobium, you like select their wing, then you have the Right of War that does something to them. Then you could have a Warlord trait that modifies them. And then they have a special rule that they can pick that also modifies what they can. So you have like layers of stuff. And sometimes that can be a little like wearing down to your opponent. Like I've definitely rocked up to the game at the beginning and been like, okay, I'm going to pick all my wings. I usually keep the wings pretty much the same. I'm not trying to like pick wings to tailor to my opponent. But still, if your opponent doesn't really know what's going on, it can feel a little overwhelming to them. That's my only really complaint about the Dark Angels rules is that it kind of is a feel bad when you're like, oh, you have X in your army. Well, I have this thing I can just pick that makes me really good against that.
Yeah.
So, and the Knight Cenobium act like that quite a bit. They're kind of a feel bad unit. They have some they're top tier. They're super, super good, but they have some stuff that can cause negative play experiences. So we'll get to that when we talk about them. So the Dark Angels have 6 different Rights of War. One interesting thing about the Dark Angels Rights of War is they have a lot of options and almost none of them are any good. It's kind of weird. Yeah. They have I don't want to say they have way too many restrictions because it's all very thematic. It's much better written than it was in 1.0 as well about like exactly what they're talking about and like exactly what you can and can't take. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but a lot of the 2.0 Rights of War are very toned down from what they used to have in 1.0. Like it's like they do this one thing. This Right of War does this one little thing. And some legions get super special Rights of War like Imperial Fists. But most of the legions is like, okay, you get to take one special thing as troops, and then they get to do one other special thing, and that's pretty much. Dark Angels are not like that. They have a bunch of insane stuff. So they basically have a Right of War for each of the wings. So they have the Steel Fist. I won't read these because it's a lot of text, but basically the Steel Fist lets you take Predator squadrons as troops, Kratos squadrons as elites, and your infantry unit type models can take heavy like Land Raider. Like if they can take a Rhino, it's actually not even like that. Any unit with infantry type with 10 or fewer models can take a Proteus carrier. And if they have more than 10 models, they could take a Spartan. So that opens up some really crazy options. I believe that means that you could take a Spartan to carry rapier batteries and stuff like that. Like any models that have the infantry unit type. I guess they have to entirely be. That's incorrect. But you could take a Spartan as a dedicated transport for a unit that can't even go in it, like Assault Marine. But then you must start the game embarked upon it. So I guess you can't. But anyway, so it's got some restrictions about how you have to start the game embarked on the transport, but it doesn't have the really bad restriction from the book Red of War where you guys just die. So you can't deep strike, you can't flanking assault. And the biggest thing, all of these rights of war, your warlord has to be of the wing that they go with, and your compulsory troops must be of the wing that they go with. Or you must use Line Olsen, who can be from any wing. So then they have the Eschaton Imperative, which is the Dreadwing Red of War that lets assault squads and Dreadwing Interemptor squads be troops. Spoiler alert, none of these give anything line. So that's one of the weaknesses of these rights of war is the lack of... None of these rights of war give anything line. The Eschaton Imperative lets you make basically the no man's land between the two players difficult terrain, and then it gives you these tokens where you can make dangerous terrain. And then I think if anything was difficult, it becomes dangerous.
It does.
So like there's like all these different ways we can manipulate the terrain. It's really fun and super thematic, but again, it kind of can create a negative play experience for your opponent.
That's exactly what I was going to say, because I really like this detachment or this Rite of War. It's very thematic. The troops are very Dark Angel, like the troops, but the models are very Dark Angel-y. I mean, like they're Dark Angels, okay? And I kind of like it, but like I could see using this like in maybe like a like a tournament situation would really piss some people off just because of all the dangerous and difficult terrain tests you continuously have to keep. It's like the whole game.
Right. And remember, there's a lot of models in the game that leave dangerous terrain for your opponent, like Graviton and Phosphex. Both leave dangerous terrain there for your opponent. There's also no restriction on using this as your army's primary detachment. You could take this with a minimum ally and make the whole board dangerous or difficult. You could pair it with Ordo Reductor, which also play off difficult turn dangerous terrain and do some really, really crazy shenanigans. But maybe if you want to keep all your friends, maybe you just don't do. So then they have the Storm of War. So the Storm of War basically forces you to take max size tactical and assault squads. It lets you take tactical and assault squads in basically every slot. It like opens up tactical squads as elite and assault squads as troops. I don't know what size games people are playing where they can take like
25.
literally 10 assault squads that are 20 man. But the coolest thing about it is it lets you basically add like a lieutenant to every squad, and it gives you like a free centurion. He can't be a consul, but he can be upgraded to a centurion, and so that gives him access to the independent character war gear list, which is pretty good to have in your little tactical squad, right? You can have a guy with a power fist or a guy with a thunder hammer in your little tactical squad or whatever. And he also has leadership 9, and I think you get stubborn. Yeah, it gives you stubborn from the Rite of War. So all your tactical squads will be lead 9 stubborn. So it's pretty good. Then you have the Unbroken Vow. That's the Deathwing Rite of War. This one's really kind of strange. It lets you take veteran squads and Terminator squads as troops, but it does not give them line. And then it creates an objective that you have to place in the center of the battlefield, which only your opponent gets points for controlling. If you don't control it, he gets 1 point. And if he controls it, he gets D3 points. So you don't get any points for controlling it. And the units that you bring can't control. So I don't know how you're supposed to actually do this.
Hold on. So if your opponent, if it's not controlled by anybody, your opponent gets a point.
Yes.
Yep.
And if your opponent actually controls it, they get D3 points.
Correct. If you control it, you get nothing.
If you control it, you get nothing.
Correct.
If you control it, do they get anything?
No. So it literally just makes every mission harder. That's all it does.
But everything you have that you bring in that, you
can't control objectives. Correct.
So
the only thing that's thematic that I can think of is bringing like command squads that can hold objectives and like heralds to attach to big Terminator squads.
See,
But, like,
Duncan, if you all could see, like, there's like steam coming out of Duncan's ears at the moment on the camera. He's just like, I can't grasp this. Like, yeah, that's
It's cool. Like, it seems so cool. They just forgot that you could only control stuff with line. That's the problem, because you get the veterans, the Terminator squads, and the Cataphractus squads gain Heart of the Legion. So if they're near an objective, their feel no pain gets better, but they can't actually hold the objective.
hold it.
Okay,
And
so
they get +1
hold on.
attack. I'm sorry, independent characters get +1 attack when you're within 12 inches of an objective, but the only independent character that can hold an objective is a herald.
Okay, so let's just pretend for a moment that you have that, and your opponent brings one of the various other forces where they get their whatever troop or their whatever special unit as troops that don't gain line. So neither of you can actually hold the darn objective in that.
Yeah, but that actually benefits your opponent because they get a point for doing nothing.
I'm starting to get an eye twitch over here.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So I think the honorary Deathwing Rite of War is Pride of the League. We'll just use that instead. Because the benefits just don't really do it, because the Heart of the Legion, it's very difficult for the Terminator squads to take advantage of that. I guess they get the 6+ feel no pain, but like you can't, like, it's hard to give them the 5+ to boost to the 4+, which is really what the Heart of the Legion does really well. It's hard. I'm not saying it's impossible. I know about Primus Medicae, but you can't buy 100 Primus Medicaes, right? You can only buy and every Primus Medicae you buy means you can't buy a Herald. So yeah, it's not very good, but that's okay. We're gonna keep going.
Okay, strange question.
Sure.
How many total rights of war do the Dark Angels have? It's what, 6?
6.
How many of them, in your honest opinion, do not play well with the actual functional rules for the Legion?
That one for sure. Storm of War is pretty cool, but the problem is that, like, again,
You're not, unless you're playing like
tactical reads.
Yeah, unless you're playing like a massive game, like, because you have to max out the squad sizes on that, like literally to the absolute max. Go look up a tactical squad, how big they get, and then
I've seen it.
Yeah.
So you're saying that two of the 6 are not really functional, in your opinion?
Not unless you're paying like a 5,000 plus point game.
Right.
And even
And
then, it's probably gonna be
Steel
weakened
Fist.
to other stuff.
Steel Fist is difficult to make work as well. It makes Predators troops, but Predators don't get line.
Nope.
So you still have to bring troops, but it gives you literally the only thing that it gives you that nothing else gives you is that it gives you you could take a 20-man breacher squad in a Spartan as a dedicated transport. But like, you're spending so many points that you could have just bought a Spartan.
Yeah.
You're not going to run out of heavy support slots because you're spending too many points on all this other stuff.
I mean, you may
So
also
it's
make
not. It doesn't really do anything for you.
You're also making Kratos like elites. So
Right.
like, what?
Whoop-de-doo, a 400-point tank in my elite slot.
Why? I mean, like, you're like, great, I could fit even more tanks that I don't have the points to play,
Right. And then it also makes, if you want to put your 20-man breacher squad in a Spartan, it makes you make them Iron Wing, and that's the literal worst infantry one. So, like, it does nothing for them. So it's not that good. So to answer your question, over half of them don't play well. But that's okay, because they're cool. The Eschaton Imperative, very cool. I don't know if it plays well. It kind of is a feel bad, but it's very cool. But we haven't gotten to the one I really like. One of them I actually think is very cool and I think plays well. You do have to design around it just like every other Rite of War, but it works well, I think. So it's not this one, though. The Seeker's Arrow is the Ravenwing one, which it lets you bring Skyhunter squadrons and Outrider squadrons as troops, but does not give them line. If you have cavalry, every unit, independent characters with cavalry gain Rampage 2, but that would force them to be by themselves. Or I guess not technically, but like it forces you to take small squads to take advantage of that. And as John knows, small squads are not the way to play bikes. You need like the mega squads to make
gotta have numbers.
Viable.
Yeah.
And all models with the cavalry or infantry unit subtypes and the Ravenwing subtype gain outflank. So that could be pretty good. And it doesn't actually make you choose bikes. You could play it with assault marines or something like that. It does have a limitation on tanks. You basically can't take vehicles that don't have fast skimmer or flyer subtype. So I don't know what vehicles have skimmer now, but
Well, couldn't you what do you call them? The little
No, it cannot take sabers.
Okay.
Oh no, you can because they're fast.
They're fast. Yeah. Yeah.
So you could take sabers. Yeah. So, but it's pretty limited. Sicarans lost fast, so you can't take Sicarans anymore. So and you only get one heavy support choice. So you could play this and maybe I don't know, start a bunch of tactical marines on the board that kind of run fast because they're Raven Wing, and then have a bunch of outflanking assault marines. But it doesn't really feel like that's something you can't do with another Rite of War. Like, assault marines already have deep strike, so do they really need outflank? I don't know. Anyways, so the last one is cool. The last one is called the Serpent's Bane. This is the Firewing one. So the Firewing are kind of like Alpha Legion Light. They're like infiltration specialists and like information operatives, and they assassinate people and all kinds of stuff like that, right? Kind of cut off the head of the snake kind of types. So you can take Seeker squads as troops. They don't gain line, but Seeker squads are cool. Basically, what you do is at the start of the battle, you have to choose 3 primary targets. They can be Primarchs, HQs, Elites, or Lords of War. It doesn't actually really go into how you select the primary targets in regards to dedicated transports. Like, if you select a unit that has a dedicated transport, is that 1 unit? Is that 2 units? Can you select the dedicated transport but not the unit itself? It's not very clear on that, so that could use a little bit of clarification. But all of your guys that have Firewing get +1 to hit against these priority targets, or units the priority target has joined. So like if they have like their Primarch and his bodyguard, you don't have to select both. You can just select the bodyguard or just select the Primarch, and it would confer to the entire unit. So the only thing that kind of sucks about that is that +1 to hit and Legion Seeker squads do not really mesh together in the rules because they're already BS5. So it's not that good, but there are a bunch of stuff that does, like you could stack this with Deathwing, which also gives +1 to, well, I guess not, because you have to be Firewing.
Scout snipers.
Yeah, you could do it with the Nemesis bolter guys like everybody else. You also get, if you have the character subtype and the Firewing unit subtype, you gain +1 attack when locked in combat with a priority target. So not only do you get +1 to hit, but you gain +1 attack on your sergeants. That's pretty solid. I don't hate that. And up to 3 troops choices that have the Firewing subtype may be given the infiltrate special. So you can infiltrate, big assault blobs or something like that. That'd be the only thing that sucks about it is that if you have not killed all 3 of the primary targets, the opposing player scores 3 victory points for each of them remaining alive at the end. So if you're not certain that you can execute the mandate, you should not select that unit. Also, if you select a Dreadnought Talon, you must kill all 3 Dreadnoughts in order to score the points. So that kind of, or actually, you don't even score points. You just get penalized if you don't do it.
Right. Like, you don't get
you
like
don't
the
get
other
3
ones,
points for
you don't get 3
doing it.
points. You just keep the other player from getting extra victory.
Right. So that probably takes it out of the running as far as being like a super effective Rite of War. But at least it's kind of has the same theme as all the others. It's thematic. It's just not very good.
Yep.
So, okay. So now that we're done with Rites of War, the Armory of the Dark Ages. They have the Weapons of Old Night. The only part of this that doesn't make sense to me is that the Calibanite Warblade is classed under Weapons of Old Night. I don't really understand why, but whatever. They have a couple special swords and a couple special guns and a special missile for their missile launch. So Calibanite Warblade, you can give character unit subtype, may exchange a power sword for a Calibanite Warblade for 5 points. A Calibanite Warblade is a power sword with +1 strength. It is not super impressive, but it's pretty solid for 5 points, giving it to a sergeant. Remember, you can kind of stack this with the +1 to hit from Deathwing. So you can't outfit like a whole unit of guys with these. There are some units that you can, but like you can't like give a whole unit of veterans these, but it's still not bad. I don't hate it. I use it on my Terminator sergeants sometimes simply because then I get the +1 to hit. Then they have 2 different plasma weapons. They actually have like 10 different plasma weapons, but 2 of them are listed here and the rest are listed somewhere else. So they have a plasma repeater, which if you have a plasma gun or a twin link plasma gun, you can get a plasma repeater for 5 points or a plasma burner for 10 points. If you have a unit of plasma guns, they all must take these upgrades. Plasma repeater is range 12, strength 6, AP 4, assault 3, gets hot, twin linked, breaching 4+. So I think that's a pretty strong contender for replacing on a tactical support squad for 10 of these guys. That would be 30 plasma shots that you get to re-roll to hit. So you're kind of mitigating the gets hot there. And then breaching 4+ already lets you mitigate the gets hot by letting you take your armor save against the gets hot rolls. So that's pretty good. And then the plasma burner is template. So it's like a flamer template. Strength 6, AP 4, assault 1, breaching 4+. These are very good if you can actually hit the enemy. In the game with the movement reactions, where they could just back up if they know you have 10 of these guys, it's not as effective as it was like in 1.0. Like, but it's still pretty good because just the amount of hits you can get with, obviously. And the template means it ignores cover and ignores shrouded. So that's quite good. They can't evade it. Then they have the best weapon, which is the Tyrannic Greatsword. You must be an independent character and a Dark Angel, and you may exchange a Power Fist for a Tyrannic Greatsword for free. That part kind of is weird to me because if you look at some of the other legions, like Night Lords can do that Eschaton Claw that really is just a Power Fist with Shred. That costs 10 or 15 points on top of a Power Fist. This sword is one of the best melee weapons in the game. Now, in order to get to that status, you do have to kind of stack it with the Dark Angel's rules, but it's super good. It's +2 strength, AP 3, melee, two-handed, rending 5, murderous strike 5. So any 5s are instant death, AP 2. It burns down dreadnoughts, it burns down independent characters, it burns down terminators. It's very good, especially on some of the units that can get it have a lot of access to reroll wounds. So that would obviously make it very good against dreadnoughts. And then they have a stasis missile that kind of sucks. It's you can swap it out for your missiles, or you can add it to your missile repertoire.
It's like a third missile basic type.
Yeah, it's range 24, strength 4, heavy 1, blast 3, concussive. It has no AP. So concussive is just they take a leadership check or a neg 1 weapons skill, right? It's concussive 1. So I could see that being useful, but it's not very reliable. Like if you can get it to proc, it's good, but a lot of these units, you don't have a lot of manipulation, like weapon or leadership manipulation. So you're not going to be able to like get them down in the low leadership so that they can fail the checks. They're just going to be taking them on the regular leadership, so you don't even have a success rate. So I pretty much stay away. Then they have a special console type. It's 30 points. You can upgrade a regular Centurion or a Terminator Centurion for 30 points. He gains weapon skill 6, leadership 10, adamantium will 3+, and he can take a Tyrannic Greatsword for no additional cost. So a Power Fist already costs 15 points. So he has 15 points basically for free. So he gets all of those bonuses for effectively 15 points. I think actually even less on the Power Armor guy. I think a Power Fist costs even more for that guy. But on a Terminator, a Power Fist is like 15. So this is a very good console choice.
It also gets stubborn.
Oh, and yeah, stubborn. Okay. So that's obviously extremely good. This one guy can solo Dreadnoughts, right? Dreadnoughts hit him on a 5. He's weapon skill 6. He hits them on a 2 if you let him be Deathwing. And then every wound he does, which he's rending 5+, he's D3 wounds on a Dreadnought. He can solo a Dreadnought. And he also gets a Order of the Hecatonistica option, which we haven't gotten to. Orders of the Hecatonistica are a special thing available to the Cenobium. So he's basically a Cenobium sergeant, but by himself. And I think he has one more wound, but he has all the rules that they do. It's a very good console choice for 30 points. I think that they've undercosted the Tyrannic Greatsword. I think the Tyrannic Greatsword should probably be at least 5 or 10 points over a Power Fist, in my opinion, but I won't tell them that. So do we want to go over the units? Do we want to go over the Primarch first? Is that the order we want to go in? That sound good?
I'd say, yeah, pick a couple units that you've gone through and you do a couple and Jamie does a couple.
That sounds good. Yeah, Jamie, you want to take away the Primarch?
You go ahead with them.
Okay. So Lionel Johnson, the first Primarch, the Lion, the Son of the Forest, Primarch of the Dark Angels. He's 460 points. He's movement 8, weapon skill 8, ballistic skill 6, strength 7, toughness 6, wound 6, initiative 7, attack 7, leadership 10 with a 2+ save. So the things that stick out to me is he's weapon skill 8, in my opinion. If your Primarch is weapon skill 7, he's mid-tier at best. You can't really compete with the weapon skill 8 guys because of how the chart works. Hitting another Primarch on a 5 is rough for a Primarch. And like if you're Lorgar and you're only weapon skill 6, yeah, you really don't have a chance. So he's very good at that. Initiative 7 is also very high. I think there's a couple guys tied with him, but only the Khan is higher, I believe. He has the Leonine the Leonine Panoply, the Lion Sword, the Fusel Actinaeus. He has a Stasis Grenade and he has Frag Grenade. He also, the other thing that he comes with special is Adamantium. His Warlord trait is basically the same as the one where you get like the +1 leadership if you can see him, but he gives it to everyone who's a Dark Angel. So any Dark Angels that can see him get +1 leadership, and he gives them Crusader. All Dark Angels in the same army gain Crusader. Does anybody know what Crusader does off the top of their head? Is that the sweeping advance one bonus? I think it's like you get an extra D3 to your sweeping advance roll.
My book's
Yeah,
all together.
it's that or it's bonuses in each. I think it's I think
Open my rule book. Hold on.
Okay, no problem. He also gets a shooting phase reaction for some reason, which is to a lot of people that's the strongest reaction. Then he can select a hexagrammaton unit subtype at the start of the battle, and then at the start of each turn he can select a different one. So he can change his hexagrammaton subtype every turn. So 99% of the time you're going to pick Deathwing because he has a sword and he gets +1 to hit, so he hits other Primarchs on a 3 or a 2. He hits many of the Primarchs on a 2. You definitely don't underplay that. That's extremely good.
So Crusader is a unit that contains one model with it, rolls an extra die when making sweeping advances, and discards the lowest before determining the.
That's pretty good. So it's 2d6, pick the highest. It's pretty good.
Yep.
So the Lion can, one of the things the Lion can do, one of the many things he can do, is he can, instead of, when he declares a charge, instead of rolling his 2d6 for a charge distance, he can declare that he will be charging 8 inches, and he will charge 8 inches. So he basically never fails anything less than an 8, and he could roll if it's more than that. He would give that, he gets that for his entire unit, any unit he has joined. That's incredibly good. It suffers no effects from difficult or dangerous terrain, so there's no way to slow him down. That's really good. When he's reduced to 4 wounds or less, he gains +1 attack, and when he's reduced to 2 wounds or less, he gains 2 attacks. So that takes him to 9 attacks, just base, without charging. I've done a few Primarch duels with the Lion so far, and every time they take me down to 1 wound, I have to tell them, like, dude, you messed up. This is right where I got you right where I want you. Because 9 attacks. What?
Activated his final form.
Yeah, exactly. 9 attacks is brutal. He has a 2+ armor save, a 4+ invulnerable save. The first failed invulnerable save, each player turn may be re-rolled. So if you're in combat, the first invulnerable save he fails in your combat, he gets to re-roll, and then the first one he fails in their combat, he gets to re-roll. That's also extremely strong. His gun is pretty dope. It's an 18-inch range, strength 7, AP 3, assault 2, twin linked, blind, and rending 3+. So it's nothing crazy. Like, he'll probably be able to kill a couple guys, but just causing that blind check. Because I played a game where I fought Lorgar with 10 Galvorbach, and I blinded them and then absolutely demolished. They had no chance. Now, Lorgar wouldn't be affected by blind, but the whole unit is, and it was pretty bad. So he actually has 2 different sword options. He has the Lion Sword, which is Strength User, AP1, Melee, Armor Bane, Flesh Bane, Mastercrafted, Instant Death, 2-handed. So he wounds every other Primarch on a 2 with this weapon, as far as I know. Maybe Mortarion is immune to that, but pretty much everybody else he wounds on a 2. He causes instant death, so you can't take any feel no pains. It's very good. I can't say anything more than that. It's also AP1 and Armor Bane, so he can kill tanks. He can stab tanks to death with it. Then he has the Wolf Blade, which is +2 strength, AP3, 2-handed, Shred, Breaching 4+, Reaping Blow 2, Mastercrafted, Fearsome Ruin. So Fearsome Ruin gives you better, like if you kill a guy with it, they have to take morale checks. I don't think you really ever take the Wolf Blade though. AP3 base is just too much of a gamble for me when the other sword is so good.
It used to be like the exact opposite, where like in 1.0, everybody would take the Wolf Blade over the Lion Sword. And so like it's kind of flipped now back.
Right. And Reaping Blow 2 is pretty good. You know, if he's in base-to-base contact with 2 enemy models, he gets +2 attacks. So that's pretty good. That could take him to 11 attacks, but only half of those are going to be AP2. And that's not that good. Now, he does get the +1 to hit if he chooses the Deathwing unit subtype with either sword. So like I said, he's hitting most other Primarchs in the game on a 2. Any weapon skill 7 Primarchs, he's hitting on a 2. Any weapon skill 8 Primarchs, he's hitting on a 3 because he would normally hit them on a 4 and then he gets a +1. He also, last thing, I promise, he has a stasis grenade. Whenever he charges a unit, you can they have to take an initiative test. If they fail the initiative test, they must reduce their initiative by 1. So it's very powerful, but not very reliable. Initiative test is pretty easy to pass, especially against a lot of units that you're going to be charging are going to have guys that are initiative 5 or initiative 6. So it's not really like super good, but that's okay.
Yeah,
The stasis grenades used to be busted.
Yeah.
So
it really
I'm not too
feels like-
mad. What'd you say?
I was gonna say, it really feels like I was in that old '90s Jackie Chan cartoon. One more thing, and you just keep adding on more and more rules.
Yeah.
And I'm just
He
like, what the
has a
hell?
lot of rules. I've played, like I said, I've played with him a couple times. I played some doubles games where we like added him. In one doubles game, he killed Lorgar in a single round of combat. Did all 6 wounds. I actually killed Lehman Russ in a single round. He did his brutal 2 stuff. I had to take 10 saves. He took me down to 5 wounds, put me right where I wanted him at 9 attacks, and I killed 6 wounds. He failed 6 saves, killed him in 1 round. He's pretty brutal. I think he's a top tier Primarch. I killed Horus Ascended in a mega battle with him. He had some help. I fed many units into the combat, but he did eventually kill him. And there was some shenanigans going on, in those apocalypse games. A lot of times they have like different. We were playing with these like cards where you could like turn units off for a turn. So I got to turn Horus off where he couldn't attack, but then he did it to me, and so we both kind of just canceled each other out. But eventually, what happened, like in every Primarch fight, I killed his bodyguard, and then my bodyguard piled on him, did a bunch of wounds to him, and then the lion finished him off. Right. That's kind of what happens. Okay. You want to go over some units, Jamie? I feel like I've been
You're more than welcome to keep
Rambling
going
on.
if you want. I mean, I have not played most of the units in games yet, so that's why I'm kind of a little leery. But I will
Which ones
say,
are you looking forward to the most?
yeah.
I would say the some of the Deathwing options are pretty cool.
The
And
Deathwing
then-
Companions.
Yeah, the
Yeah, they're
Deathwing
really good.
companions are really good, especially with some of the rules they provide for whoever they're protecting.
Yes.
And then I was also looking forward to the the non-character wise, the Irredemptor squad.
Yes. And they're pretty good. I
Yeah.
played with them a little bit. Why don't do you have it open?
Yeah, I did.
Do you want to take the interrupters and then we can talk about like using them effectively? I've only
Yeah.
used them once.
I haven't built mine out, but I've got a ton of them that I'm working on right now. So Irredemptors, if people don't know, they're Dreadwing. They're the guys that the Dark Angels sent in to basically raise planets when they're basically pissed off at them. They basically everything is plasma and nuclear weapons. So
Yep.
their weapons, or their movement 7, weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 4, toughness 4, 1 wound, initiative 4, assault 3, 2, leadership 8, save 3+. You get 4 Redemptors and basically a sergeant, and they're infantry type Dreadwing, and then they're infantry and they're infantry, and then war gear. They come with what's called a plasma burner by stock, which is their space plasma weapon is a template. It's strength 6, AP 4, assault 1, breaching 4+, and then there's an upgrade that I think you can take. Was it once every?
I think it's 1 in 5.
Yeah, it's 1 every 5.
Yeah, 1 in 5. But they can
It's-
go to 15.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd size squad. It's called the Plasma Incinerator. It's a template, strength 6, AP 4, assault 1, breaching 4, torrent 9 inches. So
You
it's
take
like
it every time.
it's basically like a long range plasma flamethrower.
Yeah.
They also special rules are Dark Angels, Stubborn, Counterattack 1, and Bitter Duty. You can have the squad sizes said they can go up to 15, which is kind of weird. They can take rhinos for transport, or a legion, or a land raider Proteus carrier if it's over the 10 models. I believe it's 10 models or more. You can take it. The land
So it
raider,
has to be no more than
no more than 10.
10. So if you're 15 guys, you're on.
You're hoofing it. And so they also have a kind of a small options other than the incinerator. They can take augury scanner, nuncio box, and They also can carry. You have an option for the heavy weapon in the squad is either the incinerator or you can take a missile launcher on a suspensor web, so you can like move and fire. And the missile launcher has rad missiles or stasis missile, or rad and stasis missiles. Sorry. And then the plasma incinerator, they're both 15. Either of those options is 15 points, and it's 1 per 5. So like potentially you could have up to 3 if you're hoofing it per squad. And then they also get 3 phosphoric bombs. They can take up to 3 phosphoric bombs and melta bombs. And then also they have the option of the sergeant can take artifact. So not like necessarily, because everybody's really looking for those 2 wound character type units or whatever. So that's not what this is for. It's it's like if you're into plasma, this is where you want to look.
Yeah, they're not very durable. They're very glass cannon.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like you kind of have to put them in some kind of transport and get them in there.
Yep.
And then they get out, they roast whatever they're going to do, and then they kind of die.
Yeah.
I've had success like driving them up in a rhino behind a land raider. Like,
yeah.
So they can't shoot the rhino, because if they know it's in there and they've been shot by these guys before, they're going to blow up the rhino because these guys walking is terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
the movement's, was it? Yeah. 7. So
I don't think you take the Phosphex bombs either. They have an 8-inch range and the flamer is 8.5-inch template. So I think the flamer, for 10 points, that's what the Phosphex bomb costs. I just don't think it's that much better than the flamer. So I think you leave the Phosphex bomb at home, but you take the plasma incinerator every time. The thing that I found crazy about these guys is actually the reactions with them, because when they react against the unit, so when they go up to shoot at a unit, you cannot place the template so that it covers the base of your own guys, right? So you can kind of limit the effectiveness. You can kind of hamstring yourself by the positioning of your men, right? But when they do like a return fire or an Overwatch, every guy is Wall of Death with the breaching 4+. So that's pretty good. Now, the one thing that kind of sucks about that is the weapon that's Torrent 9 still only has an 8-inch range for Wall of Death for some reason. He doesn't get his Torrent range. He just gets a Flamer range. But that's kind of a small price to pay. Still pretty good.
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of things that you can buy Phosphex bombs now. They seem so expensive that I'm just really not taking them as much as I did in 1.0.
It's kind of weird because it's like there's almost no other AP2 templates.
Yeah.
Are they AP2?
Yeah.
They
just costed it so high. It's like 10 or 15 points every time. You're just like, man, that's a one-use weapon. I don't think I'm getting the functionality out of it.
Yeah, I agree.
I was looking at the Ultramarine Nemesis unit today, and that was what making me think of it. I was like looking at it like, wow, this Sergeant, if I just take a couple upgrades, is going to be costing half as much as the squad.
The cool thing now is that you can use the blast weapon in Overwatch and stuff like that. So you can save it for the Overwatch. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. I agree.
Yeah.
So I really like them. The only thing that I don't want to say kind of sucks, but the limitation of them is that they are locked to Dreadwing.
Yeah.
So you can't like give them a different wing, and I don't know really what else you would give them. So that's not that bad, but you can't like make them Raven Wing or whatever. But it would be cool to make an army with like basically just these guys, Dreadwing, Red War.
That's one of the things I'm doing. I'm doing like a mech unit, like all mech, and then I'm doing one of these.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. All right, you want to go over my favorite unit?
Go for it.
The Inner Circle Knight Cenobium.
Yeah,
275 points for 5 men. They're basically regular Terminator stats, except for the regular dudes are weapon skill 5, and they're all leadership 9. The sergeant and the regular dudes are leadership 9. And the sergeant, he's called a preceptor. He's weapon skill 6 base. So he hits praetors on 4s. He's very good. He hits, like if he's the only guy left, I've had this happen to me before. A dreadnought hits him on 5s. He hits a dreadnought on 3s, which goes to 2s because you only ever give these guys Deathwing because they all have the insane swords.
Yep.
So starts at 5 guys. They come with a Tyrannic Greatsword, a Plasma Caster, which is like a toned down version of the Flamers we just went over. It's the same thing basically, but it's breaching 6 instead of breach. It's still pretty good though, especially for like Overwatch or Return Fire and stuff like that. They have Legion Cataphractic Terminator armor. Then they have something that's extremely unique. I think only 2 other units in the game have it. They're infantry character. Every single one of them is a character. So there's a lot of wound allocation shenanigans that you can do with that. They share this with suzerains and I believe Phoenix Terminators. Now, it's not quite as broken as it sounds at the beginning, because once you start allocating a wound pool to a model, you must finish the wound pool before you can start allocating another wound pool. So you can't just like, oh, I failed 10 saves. Each of my 10 guys take 1 wound. It doesn't really work like that. But if they have a unit that's shooting at you that has a bunch of different weapons, it's very easy to get 3 or 4 guys on one rather than killing 3 guys. Very, very good. They have Legions of Stars Dark Angels. They have Relentless. They have Bulky 2. They're Stubborn. They have Adamantium Will 3+. That makes them a very good escort for a librarian, because if he perils of the warp, they have a 3+ invulnerable save versus those wounds. They have also have Order Exemplars, which is this special rule where they get to pick another special rule that makes them good against like pretty much anything in the game.
So we're like four different rule sets deep now, I think, at this point.
Right. You can pick your Rite of War. You can pick your wing. You can pick your dude. You can pick your this. You can pick your that. Yeah, it's pretty. You kind of see what I'm talking about when I say it can be kind of a feel bad for your opponent when they basically rock up to the game and you're just like, oh, you brought that. Okay, well, let me tune my army. I'm bringing the same units, but let me just tune my army to fight you real quick. It's not really how you should play it. A lot of these rules say that you're supposed to pick them during army creation, but when exactly that is not super well defined in the rule. Is army creation when you're sitting on Quartermaster on the toilet at home, or is army creation in the very beginning of the game right before you roll for your warlord trait? It's not clear, really.
I would say army creation is when you sit there and print out your list and it's locked in stone. These are what
I think that's fair. So you can take up to 5 additional dudes. They're 50 points each, so they're quite expensive. A full unit of these guys is 525 points, but it's worth every penny. They could take a Legion Vexilla. I don't think I would ever take that. They're probably not running away. They're Stubborn 9, and they're probably winning any combat that you wanted them to get in. They can exchange their Tyrannic Greatsword for a Thunderhammer for free. This is the only situation where you do not take a Thunderhammer, if you are able to take a Thunderhammer. Because they don't get the Deathwing special rule with the Thunderhammer, it actually makes the Thunderhammer worse, in my opinion. So maybe you give a couple guys a Thunderhammer, but actually taking the Thunderhammer is a way to tone this unit down. So it's kind of strange. Then you can take a
Thunderhammers.
What'd you say?
How often do you hear that about a Thunderhammer?
Right, never. Any other unit that could take a Thunderhammer takes the Thunderhammer every time. You can also take a Grenade Harness. So I guess that gives you the frag grenades, so you can charge through difficult terrain or something. I don't know.
Yep.
Okay, so they have the Orders of the Hecatonistica. So remember, this applies to this unit, and the Paladin guy, the console type, can also take one. So the first one lets them add 1 to the strength of their weapon when they target a vehicle that has armor value 11 or greater. So remember, the sword is +2 strength and rending 5. So if they're targeting a vehicle that does not have armor 11, they don't need +1 strength. So it's not really that much of a limitation. And they can blow up Spartans because they have rending and +1 and +2 and all that. So that's pretty good.
Rending does not give you
yeah, they can't explode it, but they can kill it.
Pointed out.
Yeah, so the next one is called Icons of Resolve. They gain +1 leadership when they're charged by the enemy. That's actually not a terrible one. Takes them to leadership 10 Stubborn. I could think of worse rules to have, but it's the weakest of all of these. So they have Slayers of Kings. This one's quite good. They may re-roll failed to hit rolls of 1 when engaged in a combat with any model that has weapon skill 5 or higher, or in a challenge with any model that has weapon skill 5 or higher. So that would mean they're hitting another unit that has weapon skill 5. The regular dudes are hitting them on 3s, re-rolling 1s, and the sergeant's hitting them on 2s, re-rolling 1s. So that's pretty solid, and that would also, Dreadnoughts would apply to this as well. Hunters of Beasts. This is my favorite one. I find it's actually pretty thematic for these guys, and it's also quite strong, so that's always great. They may re-roll failed to wound rolls of 1 when they're engaged in combat with any unit, which includes models that have a toughness of 5, or any failed to wound rolls if the target's toughness is 6 or higher. So you can already see how that pairs well with the rending 5+, instant death 5+ swords, because they're already wounding a dreadnought on 5s. That would make them then re-roll the 5s. It's very good. The Reapers of Host is pretty cool. I like this one too. Model gains +1 attack whenever they begin in base contact with more than 1 enemy model. When they're fighting a bunch of dudes, they get +1 attack. that's obviously on a per guy basis, so that can take a little bit of shuffling to get your guys to be able to actually do that. But it's pretty cool when you get to pull it off. And then the last one is pretty strong, but very situational. They may re-roll all to hit and wound rolls when attacking an enemy unit that includes one or more models with Demon, Psyker, or Corrupted. It's very good against Word Bearers.
I was going to say, Word Bearers do not like these.
It's very good against Thousand Suns. And I don't know, there's kind of a librarian kind of wave that people are starting to run librarians because of the telepathy, is it? The one that you could shut off the reaction?
Okay.
Very good discipline. So people are starting to run librarians, so that's not actually a bad one to pick. Also, you got 2 out of the 18 Primarchs have those subtypes. Actually, 3, I think. Conrad Kurz has the Psyker subtype.
Yep.
And Lorgar has the Corrupted subtype, and Magnus has the Psyker subtype. Those guys are very strong. My list that I've been running like a Deathwing list that's all Terminators and Companions. And these guys they carry their weight every single time. They're so good.
They look, just on paper wise, like really good, like Dreadnought killers.
Yes. They
So really
slaughter Dreadnoughts.
strange question. Say you're playing Alpha Legion.
Okay.
Would you take either of the units so far as
Yes.
which one?
Cenobia are still very good, but the problem with taking them in Alpha Legion is that they actually lose quite a bit because the +1 to hit with the sword is so good that they can't have that because that requires the Dark Angels. So I think I'd still take them, but the thing I don't like about Alpha Legion in the current edition, I'm not trying to go on a rant about Alpha Legion, but is that you're kind of pigeonholed into a couple different units that are like super good because of all their good rules are in the unit rather than being on the, in conjunction with their army special. Like the suzerains, very good because of all the rules they have on their data sheet rather than necessarily being Ultramarines doesn't really make them any better, right? If that makes sense. These guys are very good, and being Dark Angels makes them extreme. So I would still probably would be tempted to take them. They're very cool looking models too. Like that doesn't hurt, but I don't think it's like the best unit to pick. Actually, I really like Phoenix Terminators. They're very good. But like it seems like most Alpha Legion players pick Siege Tyrants.
Yeah.
It's like the most popular thing to pick.
Or Suzerain.
I don't want to I don't want to go on a rant, but Siege Tyrants are the most boring unit in the game, in my opinion.
Okay, good to know.
Duncan's like,
I'm not commenting on the 20 of them that I have sitting over there.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I just ordered 10 more Fulmentaris. So.
Oh, of course.
So it's so weird. So like the Fulmentaris seems so much better on paper, but because there's actual like limitations to what they can do, they're more fun.
Yeah.
The Siege Tyrants just sit there and can't basically be shot. You can't shoot them. They just shoot you. Like it's just not that fun. I don't think.
I mean, that's the Fulmentaris have that too, where they can stay out of line of sight and wanted curve their bullets.
They actually have like restrictions.
Yeah.
Right. Like they have to stand still to be able to use the out of line of sight. So there's some play there where you can't just like sit them in the back of your deployment zone and just not be shot.
Yeah.
I mean, you can sit them behind a piece of terrain and not be shot, but
yeah, it's just weird that they can curve the bullets and the missiles.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense, but that's okay.
Look, it's magical space, future 40,000 years in the future. I'm just glad that right now we don't have elves in this edition.
Yet.
Yeah.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't you do that.
Do you want to take the last unit, Jamie? Do you want to take the Deathwing Companions? There's a couple more units in the Exemplary Battles and the Legacies PDF and all that stuff, but I think we can skip those.
Yeah, so the Deathwing Companion Detachment, their stats are Movement 7, Weapon Skill 5, Ballistic Skill 4, Strength 4, Toughness 4, 2 wounds, Initiative 4, Attacks 2, and Leadership 8, and 2+ saves. And the Oath Bearer, the Sergeant, it just has an additional attack, and so he's got 3 attacks, and then he's got a leadership up. So these guys start with a 5-man squad. The Oath Bearer, and then the 4 additional companions. You can add an additional 5 more companions to the squad for 25 each. They come standard with the Carbine, Warblade, Bolter, Bolt Pistol, Artificer Armor, Frag Grenades, Crack Grenades, Refractor Field, Deathwing, Oath Bearer only, so the Sergeant. Their unit type: Deathwing Companion Infantry, Deathwing, and Deathwing Oathbearer is infantry, is character and a Deathwing in its infantry. Special rules are Legion of Dark Angels, Deathsworn Companions, which that's kind of a cool rule. And then
cool.
Yeah, it's one of the things that people with sniper rifles and with the Nemesis bolters hate. And then Chosen Warriors, Relentless, and Deathwing Retinue. So they can take a Rhino if they're under. They can take a Rhino as a dedicated transport, or a Land Raider Proteus carrier as a dedicated transport as well. So options, again, you can add 5 more to the squad. Any model with a bolter can take a bayonet or chain bayonet. They can take melta bombs. They can take a power fist or tyrannic greatsword. So there's your big because they all have Calibanite warblades default. So you'd sub out the Calibanite warblade for one of the nasty swords.
Of course.
Of course, yeah. It's a 5 point, so to me that's almost a gimme, but I don't know. Maybe not for some people.
One question real quick. Does anybody know off the top of their head, like, so on a unit that can take both a power armored unit that could take both a power weapon and a power fist, what do those cost respectively? Is it 10 and 15? Does anybody know off the top of their head?
I'm pulling it up.
I'm just curious because it's interesting that they come with a 15-point power weapon because it's a power weapon and then a 5-point upgrade. And then they can swap for a power fist or a tyrannic greatsword for 5.
So
it feels like a bargain.
Command squad power weapon is 5, power fist is 15.
So they get a 5-point discount effect. Oh no, they get that's right because their power weapon's actually 5 more than regular. Okay, it's not bad then. Tyrannic greatsword's still worth 5 points every day of the week, but
yeah, that's just
it is two-handed, whereas the other one is not. But
Magna Combi weapon, Magna Combi weapon, minor combi weapon, plasma pistol, Cytherian pattern Aegis. They can take a Legion Vexilla, and you could do jump packs on them as well.
Very expensive to do jump packs.
Yep, 10 points per. So the Deathwing Retinue is a Deathwing Companion detachment may only be selected as part of the detachment that includes at least one model with both Master of the Legion and Legion of Astartes Dark Angels and special rules. Unit selected in this manner is considered a retinue squad. The model with both Master of the Legion and Legion of Astartes Dark Angels special rules is referred to as the retinue squad's leader for the purposes of special rule. Blah, 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 blah. The big part is the retinue squad does not use up a force organization slot and is considered part of the same unit as the model that is its leader. Retinue squad must be deployed with at the same time as the leader. Leader may not voluntarily leave the retinue squad during play. Deathwing Companion detachment may not be selected as part of an army without a leader. So the Deathsworn Companions, any unit that includes at least one model of this special rule ignores the effects of precision strikes X and precision shots X and sniper special rules, and the casualties from shooting attacks and melee attacks are always allotted to the model of the controlling player's choice. So you can't snipe out leaders and HQs.
It's pretty good.
It's that's really good. And then
the only thing I don't think it turns off is I think a Primarch can still snipe you because he doesn't actually have any of those rules. He has something special. So I think a Primarch can still snipe your guy out with his gun. But most of them are just going to wade into your squad and kill them anyways. But so these guys, other than fighting a Primarch, are going to keep your big guy alive to get in the fight. Yeah, that's what they're there for. They're also one of those mythical 2-wound squads that everybody's looking for right now. But they kind of have limited because you have to have them with a bigger HQ type model. They're kind of limited use outside of that. So. They also the Oath Bearer, the sergeant of the squad. They have what's called the Cytherian pattern Aegis, and wouldn't you say it's basically it's so much text?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a wall of text, but basically it's like a special shield. Would you say?
Yes, it's like a shield you can
deploy out.
It always gives the guy who has it a 4+ invulnerable against shooting and a 5+ in melee. But if you have 2 or more guys with it, it's not just for the sergeant. Anybody can have it. If you have 2 or more guys with it, they can deploy it, and they can't make attacks or shoot. But the entire unit is 4+ invulnerable save against shooting and 5+ in melee, and any enemy models engaged with a model from the Deathwing Companion's attachment in an assault have their initiative reduced by 1. That makes it. That's just the icing on the cake. Giving your entire unit an invulnerable save is already very good, and then also initiative down by 1. That means your Praetor strikes before theirs, which you'd have to have a Praetor to have these guys. So like, it's pretty solid. It's pretty solid, and because of the wound allocation, there's really no reason to ever have more than 2 guys with the because you can just allocate the wounds away from them. They can't be precision shotted. They can't be sniped. So there's really no reason to have more than 2 of the shields in the unit. The only thing I think might be if you like had them in the front and then like you got assaulted and they had to be picked because they're the only models in base-to-base contact. But there's ways around that. You can make that not happen to you if you play them.
If you play them right. So I mean,
they're really good.
It's a very cool unit. I mean, I guess when you start adding all the bells and whistles, they can get pretty expensive. But like they're there kind of to keep your big guys in the fight to get in the fight. Yeah. And they still, like, with the swords that they have, they're still nothing to snuff at because they're still going to hit you hard back too.
The only thing that I think is a downside to them, I guess two sides of the same coin. Their retinue rule does not allow them to take Allegiance standard like some do.
Right.
I wish it did. That would make them a lot more viable because then they could score in that Deathwing Rite of War and all that stuff. And an Apothecary and a Tech Marine, really the Apothecary can never join these guys because of their retinue. Weird rules interaction with the Apothecary rule and the retinue. They can't join a unit that has an independent character.
It's in a couple places.
Yeah, every retinue.
Yeah.
So
sucks.
That's not just these guys. I'm just saying that they also have that limitation.
Yeah, it sucks.
So you'd have to have a premise Medicaid to get them to feel no pain. That's not the worst thing in the world. Maybe having to pay the extra for the premise Medicaid is good because these guys are pretty solid. The Dark Angels really didn't get any losers in terms of units. As much as their Rites of War are not super powerful because of the restrictions that they put on you, the units are very good. So I can't really complain about where they're at.
It kind of goes with the fluff a little bit too.
Yeah.
Because like before they found the line and all that stuff where they kind of were, they had all those different wings and they, basically were getting slaughtered off because they're all kind of highly specialized and didn't do anything. It did one thing really good, but didn't do everything awesome. Or, what I'm kind of saying. So like it kind of fits in with that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't hate it. I think that it's very thematic the way they've done it. I would probably say that it needs a little tweaking to really make it like work beautifully. Like I don't really like that the dedicated transport has to have the same type as the guys inside. I don't really see why a tank can't have a different than the guys, but it's not the end of the world. Overall, I think they're still in a pretty good spot.
It's a complicated army to play. It's a lot of
choices.
Yeah, it's a lot of management you have to make. So
yeah, it's tough, but it's pretty rewarding when it all comes together. It's pretty fun. I like it. Do we want to touch on the characters, or do we think we've had enough of Man Reed's book?
Yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and call it there for tonight.
Okay.
We'll see if we want to go to characters next time, or if we want to maybe jump into list building. Maybe each of us tries to build the list, and then you critique us.
I'm no expert, but...
Well, you're more of an expert than at least 3 of us here are with the Dark Angels.
Yep.
Yeah, I took him to Warzone Houston. I took I won't like go into my list, but I took like a Deathwing focus list. I had Corswain with 10 companions. I had a Herald with 10 Cenobium in a Spartan. Corswain is in a Land Raider. Then I had a 10-man Terminator squad, Cataphractic Terminator squad in a Spartan, and a 5-man in a Land Raider. That was all I had. All Deathwing, all the time. So I didn't really like play super into the strengths by like, because the Terminator, actually the base Terminator squads are pretty good as Stormwing because you get the +1 to hit with the bolt guns. But if you don't give them all power swords, they're not very good as Deathwing. But I was right, like I basically made the choice, like rather than confuse these guys are this and these guys are that, I was like, they're all the same. You don't have to worry about it. They're all exactly the same. They all get the same benefits. You could also like take the Terminators and give them Iron Wing so that their transport would get Iron Wing, which is pretty good. But I felt like the army actually did pretty well, despite how tanks and especially transports are not in the best spot in the game because of their rolling death traps. Basically, they blow up. I did lose one tank on turn 1 every single game I played. Whichever one they wanted, they killed turn 1. So they never picked the right one because the Cenobium one is the right one. But it was pretty. I had some pretty fun games. Really interesting game against Alpha Legion where he blew up 2 of my tanks on turn 1, and I was like, oh man, I'm so screwed. And then I turned around and blew up all 3 of his transports on turn 1. The bottom.
So if you go Deathwing and get the Ram bonus, the Irish car bomb that Duncan's all about with the rhinos could be very powerful.
Yeah. The only
What?
issue with that the only issue with that is like you have to give a squad that has swords the Deathwing to make the use of it, right?
Yeah.
And then they have to go in a transport that's not an assault vehicle because you have to give them the Rhino. Because obviously if you give them the Spartan, the Ram +1 Ram on the Spartan's pretty strong, but a bunch of las cannons is stronger.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So that's the only issue with that. But I like that idea. And you could, I don't know, maybe you could like use sabers.
Yeah, that's
give them Deathwing for the +1 Ram. But if you want +1 Ram, you should just play like Blood Angels or something. Or don't World Eaters give +1 Ram or something?
No.
What? It's kind of lame.
No, I have to actually look at that, so I can't, because I don't actually ram with anything. Most of the time, my World Eater stuff that is transported is just getting blown up because they don't want to fight what's inside. So
fair enough.
Yep, nope, they don't get anything for their vehicles. They just get on a successful charge, you get a +1 attack, even if it's.
Yeah, that kind of sucks. That's good. I mean, that's a good bonus. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that I feel like every Legion should at least get something for vehicle. We were talking about that the other day.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I kind of feel that the Dark Angels get a lot more bonuses than any other Legion.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's not really a question. I think at this point.
No, I don't mean like for all the combined stuff. I'm talking about like their Legion Astartes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have the most stuff they can pick from. The only Legion that even comes close is Thousand Suns, and we're just talking about the amount of stuff, not the power level of that stuff.
Yeah.
But they do have Thousand Suns do get 6 different. Is it 5 or 6? How many cults there are? They get a different thing for each cult, but they have a lot of drawbacks to actually be able to use. Like I don't have to take a leadership chest to get +1 to hit with a sword. So
yeah,
you're absolutely right. They definitely have the most variety in what they can do. And it's not all like the absolute best top tier single thing, but it's all valuable in some kind of scenario on some unit in some way. So I can't really complain about it. The only one I don't really see myself using too often is the Raven Wing.
Yeah.
But not because it's bad, just that's not really my style. That's pretty much all I got to say about Dark Angels rules. Overall, pretty solid, I think.
And you also
the characters are good too. We didn't really get into them, but they're very good too. Corswain is a top tier duelist.
Oh yeah. And we also talked a little bit about the exemplary battle stuff and the sheets they had from Forge World as well. Yeah.
Their exemplary battles unit is basically just a unit of Cenobium that has a locked rule. Like, you know how the regular ones can pick their rule? It has a locked rule. I don't remember what it does.
Yeah, I don't either off the top.
And then they have a different special sword called the Alvex Moor's Greatsword, but I don't know what that does either. I'm not very prepared for that. And then in the Legacies PDF, they have 2 more characters. They have Ferrith Redloss and what's the last one? Holgwyn, Paladin of the Deathwing. Yeah. It's like a second Deathwing guy.
Holgan and
Redloss. It's really weird though that they did the characters like that. They gave us 2 Deathwing guys and 2 Dreadwing guys when there were 6 wings to pick from.
Yeah.
But I can't really be mad at it. And then there's also a special automata that the Dark Angels get in there that's very cool. It's way too much to go over in this episode. You have to literally own every publication that Forge World or that Games Workshop has put out for Horus Heresy so far.
It's a giant man of iron like battle automa that's basically made for killing literally anything and everything.
Yeah. And then they also have a Firewing Cabal, which is like a little 3-man jump unit that's basically like 3 Centurions in one unit with a cool rending sword. They're pretty cool. I don't really see people playing them, but they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. Is that everything?
Yeah, I think so. Appreciate you coming on again, Lucas, and
no problem.
Everybody else out there. I think next time we're going to do it this time, but Dan couldn't be with us this time, so we're going to do it next time. Talk a little bit about hobby burnout and what you can do to keep yourself motivated. I know this time I've been actually building the ash waste buildings for our event coming up. So appreciate everyone coming with me this week, and that includes John, myself, and
Duncan.
Jack.
Jamie.
And Lucas.
we got
Oh, we got
it.
that part right.
You can stay accountable to your buddies, gentlemen, and have a great night. Thank you very much.